Voilà, conférence de
So
presse
the press conference for Big Docter's film Inside Out, produced by Disney Pixar. Enjoy.
It is like close. We're all a big family here, you know? Thank you all. I think it's time to, dear photographers, to join your seat so that the press conference can start. Hi, Pete. That suits you, Pete. Can you please take your seats? Thank you very much. Well, bonjour à tous, dear journalists and friends. Welcome to the press conference from Inside Out, Pixar Animation Studios' new film, presented out of competition in Cannes for its world premiere. What a treat just for us. Some introductions first. To my left, John Lasseter, Chief Creative Officer of both Walt Disney Animation and Pixar Studios, who's changed forever our perception of animation, a legend. Welcome back. To his left, meet the US voice talents. Amy Poehler, actress, comedian, director, producer, writer. She wrote a special touch to the famous Saturday Night Live show for many years, Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in Parks and Recreations. She's today the voice of joy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Phyllis Smith, known for a role in the US hit series The Office. She's Joy's journey companion, sadness, and she sure doesn't look sad today. Mindy Kaling, actress, writer, and producer of her own show, The Mindy Project. She is the voice of disgust. To your far right, the French voice talents, Charlotte Lebon. A Franco-Canadian actress, she recently starred in Lassie Armstrong's The 100-Foot Journey and was Yves Saint Laurent's muse in Jalil Zepper biopic. She is Joy. Gilles Lelouch, French actor, director, and scriptwriter. You know him, he starred in Guillaume Canet's Tell No One, Little White Lies, and more recently in The French. He's all fired up here as Anger. Pierre Ninet, French actor and director of the hilarious TV series Casting, former member of the Comédie Française, Caesar for Best Actor in Jalil Lepers' Yves Saint Laurent. He is Fear. Far from a perfect man indeed. Marie-Lou Berry, one of France's most versatile talents and actresses. She's also the director of the upcoming Joséphine 2, and she is our voice of sadness. And naturally, center stage, the duo that already took the Croisette by storm with Up, which opened the festival in 2009 before winning the Oscar for Best Animation Film. I'm of course mentioning Jonas Riviera, producer, and the Oscar-winning director of Monster Inc., and now Inside Out. That is Pete Docter, whose, by the way, original story it is. You know, as they all left the screening, they were like, oh my God, what a film. So, John, my question will be, of course, to you. Cinema, as can be seen and felt in Cannes, is precisely what Inside Out is all about, embracing emotions. And as it takes us to the world within and the little voices in our head, I was naturally curious and wondering, John Lasseter, what little voices you heard when Pete Docter pitched the bold concept of Inside Out to you, and what emotion is taking over right now in Cannes before this audience.
When Pete pitched the idea, Pete and Jonas came to me with this idea, right away I knew that this was something really special. But I also knew it was going to be a very difficult movie to create, because we wanted to create a movie about something that everyone in the world and everyone in the audience knows about but has never seen before. And it was really exciting to make this film. It was a long journey. We did a tremendous amount of research to get the details right and to understand what science and psychologists and everybody knows about emotions, memories, and the way that the kind of mind works. And it became the foundation for the world that we've created. And I just need to say we're so honored and happy, and thank you to the festival here in Cannes to bring us back, because it's really been 2009 was a highlight of our life, and this is now the second highlight of our life to be here. And I also just want to say that my son Bennett Lassiter had a film showing here, a short film showing here as well. So father and son at Cannes.
Yes.
So very excited.
Very excited indeed. Well, I see you nodding, Jonas and Pete. I mean, I remember how moved you were when you presented Up in Cannes. A yellow memory, I'm sure, the call of joy. Pete, your daughter, then age 6, was the voice of young Ellie. And Jonas, you are the father also of 3. It seems, you know, Inside Out has many personal resonances, but also a universal heart that addresses both children and adults alike.
Yeah, we think so. I mean, when Pete first pitched it, that's the first thing I thought of was my own kids, and I went home, even at the very outset of the pitch, just watched them and just wondered at, you know, what happens in their head when they make little decisions or play with this or play with that, and it just felt like a great arena to make a movie in, and we were very proud. So we approached it as parents, and that was sort of the optics that we looked through, and we worked really hard at that.
Yeah, my daughter was about 9 when she did the voice of Ellie in Up, and then she turned 10 and 11, and at the beginning of this film I saw her looking a lot less energetic and more kind of quiet and reserved, and I thought, what's going on in her head, you know? And that's really what started us working on this film. And I think all the films we do, whether they be about monsters or fish or cars, we want to project something of our own lives and put them on the screen so that the audience recognizes their own experience in the movies that we make. That's what we're always striving to do. We hope that we've done it in this one.
Well, we'll now take questions from the audience. First question here.
Hi, I'm Alan Shea from the Harvard Crimson. This is for Amy Poehler. So, go Boston. Big fan of Parks and Rec, and I guess the obvious comparison is, Joy and Leslie Knope. When you were preparing for the role and when you were performing, did you ever draw on your experience as Leslie in your performance for this film?
Well, Joy in the film is kind of the motor, and she kind of keeps things moving, and that certainly is a similarity with the character I played on Parks and Recreation. It's really nice to go to work, and your job is to kind of tell everyone that everything's going great. But what was so nice about playing this character was that she, like all of the emotions, feels like she should really be the only one there. And so it was fun to play with the dynamic of sadness especially, but the journey of joy, just like everyone else, realizing that like you are stronger as a team and you need to work together. But yeah, I basically just do one character in everything that I do.
A question here. Gentleman on the second row.
Hello, Sperling Reich with Showbiz Sandbox in Los Angeles. And this is a question really for the actresses who are known mostly for comedic work. Did you ever think in a million years you'd be, and this is where one of you is going to correct me and say that you have been here before, but did you ever think in a million years you'd be in Cannes with a film?
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you guys. But.
How dare you? I played Medea thrice on Broadway. No, I think, I've been friends with these two for a while. And I was on The Office with Phyllis, and I've known Amy for a long time. But, I think we all agree Amy's virtuosic, so I knew that she would be here sooner or later. It's such a joy, pun intended, to be here with her. So it's been nice.
I think that I'm not sure what your question is, but what I guess is that comedy and drama are like, this film is such an example of they live so close together. And I think the performances from everyone in this, at this table and film is an example of how real comedy, great comedy makes you feel very big feelings.
Question over there, the gentleman, please.
Hello, Jack Malvern from The Times. A question for John and anyone else who wants to answer. At the very end, there's a cat and a dog, and you see inside their heads. dog comes out a lot better. As the whole cats versus dog question, which side do you fall?
We wanted to kind of end. I love happy endings, and I love, leaving people kind of with a real laugh. And we kept talking about how it'd be fun to kind of see into other characters' heads, and so
it was something that John hooked onto right at the beginning when we first pitched it. You were excited about that.
Yeah, and then we started looking at, okay, let's go into the teacher and every character that you kind of met, and then we said we have to go into the head of a dog and a cat, and I have both, and it's true. I just said the dogs would all be right there, and it's like kind of. All five of them are exact same emotion, and they're like all right there. And it said when we cut to the cat, you cannot see any of them, right? You just like boom, and then it's just they kind of wander in, we just think it's really funny. And there's like we answered the question. Everybody wonders why all of a sudden the cat just freaks out all of a sudden and runs.
Question right here.
Hi, I'm Nadia from Eyewitness News in South Africa. You talk about the research that was done, Pete. Was there anything that was really complex to break down into, simpler terms? Anything that was really tricky to get your head around in terms of the psychology? And then just also for the female talents, the thing that appealed to you most about doing this, it's such a clever and inventive way of exploring the subject. Can you just talk about what you really were drawn to? Thanks.
Yeah, pretty much everything was complicated, and a big job of the film was simplifying it down. Not necessarily for the kids, because they get it, but the adults. We had to simplify it for the adults. And a lot of stuff, as much as we could, we put in the film. Even things like at the beginning, Joy says, all right, it's time for sleep. Let's get these memories down to long term. That was drawn from research. We found there's a short-term memory that is basically filled up during the day. And while you're sleeping, during non-REM sleep, it's redistributed to long term. So there's tons of examples of that kind of stuff that we put into the film. Some things that we knew, like the way we treat memories is not accurate to the way actual memory works. But that'll be a different press conference.
But because we did our research, we like to say that's exactly how the mind looks.
Yes.
That's how memories work.
Exactly.
Your emotions wear clothes. Right? It's fact.
Well, I have a question really for the French actors, the voice talents here. I mean, la joie, la tristesse, le dégoût, la colère, la peur. How did each of you find the right tone? How challenging was it to bring an emotion to life? Voilà, comment vous êtes-vous approprié chacune de ces émotions?
Is it actually very difficult to embody these emotions? And what challenges did you have to meet in order to display these emotions on the screen?
I said it in English anyway.
We were fortunate. We worked with original voices that were very strong and powerful. That in itself was very fortunate. We tried to come across as very sincere and to have a lot of fun. Also, in addition to the emotion we were portraying, there were other feelings as well. Things were quite modulated. In my case, it wasn't just anger for 2 hours. There's a modulation. One witnesses joy or fear in the child while being angry at the same time. Things were very nuanced for we actors. It was extremely interesting. One had to adapt the tone. In French, certain jokes didn't work at all, so we had to adapt things. That also was a bit more complex, but it was a way for each of us to find what we would usually say in similar circumstances, but in French, and it was lots of fun. It gave us a lot of freedom and enabled us to really identify with the character. The characters are very nuanced. For us, for example, it was like 50 Shades of Blue for sadness. It wasn't just sadness, in fact. There was a whole range, a palette of sadnesses and feelings which rounded each other off. And the feelings changed in the course of the film. When you start the film, Riley's very young and her emotions are very basic, and then they evolve during the film.
Question.
Mary Lou just gave you your sequel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shades of Blue.
Question fond. I love it, right? Question.
Rodrigo Fonseca, TV Globo, Brazil. Question to Pete Docter. The film is really touching, but I can't stop regretting your decision to get rid of the cotton elephant, the imaginary friend. Could you please say a few words about this character and how did you research to produce this really interesting reflections about imaginary friendship? It was really interesting.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you like. Bing Bong was a really fun character. He was based on any number of children's imaginary friends. I had an elephant imaginary friend, but mine wasn't made of cotton candy and stuff like that.
Why is it made of cotton candy, Pete?
I just like cotton candy. There you go.
Yeah, we want to know
it's good
that.
research.
Simple.
But yeah, he's the personification, the manifestation of childhood. And he is an echo of Joy. So Joy believes that Riley should stay a kid, but Bing Bong is like times 10, because we thought of him a little bit like an out-of-work actor who's desperate to get back in. So everybody he meets, he's like, I can do that, I can be bigger, I can be shorter. So he was a lot of fun. But as soon as we came up with and really arrived at who he is and what he represents, then the idea that he would have to sacrifice himself. Don't give that away if you guys are writing to people who haven't seen the movie, but the fact that he would sacrifice himself just felt right and noble and what had to happen.
There's something so representative of childhood, and I think that this is at the, Riley, it's at that threshold of a child starting to grow up, and that's what I think Pete saw in his daughter, and what was at the core of what Pete and Jonas, had created. And I think Bing Bong actually it was the illustration of that. One of the things that we always do at Pixar is we try to tell our stories visually, and instead of just kind of major story points with words, we tried to get visual things to represent that. And I think Bing Bong was that for us in very much. It's almost the representation of childhood.
Question here. Can you please stand up that we see you?
Should we applaud?
Oh, okay.
Hello, Louise Jury from the Evening Standard. This is possibly for anybody, but to narrow it perhaps to Pete, John and Amy. I just wondered, this film is so imaginative and so inventive. I just wondered whether you kind of felt that actually in terms of American movie making, animation is really kind of way ahead of everything else in terms of imagination at the moment.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's certainly amazing to look inside the brain. That terrain is not well traveled, and so that I thought it was a beautiful chance to go inside a space that we are in every day, but don't know what it looks like. So animation can do that, certainly.
Yeah, Pete and Jonas, yes.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear you say we don't think of the way we make films as any different than any other live action or anything like that. We feel like good storytelling is always at the core of it, and we treat it not just for kids, but for ourselves, for kids as well as really for the whole family. And so it's nice to hear you say that.
Yeah, the only real, we often hear of animation referred to as a genre, which we don't believe in. We just consider it a medium. And one thing, the only real metric we work to, is John Lasseter tells us all, us and every filmmaker at the studio, is just make something you would want to see, make something you would be proud to show your family. And that's really what we do. So we try to put as much sophistication and torque on the storytelling as any director or producer would, and that's just how we approach it every day.
The natural process of our production, also that we cannot do coverage like you can in live action filmmaking. It's too expensive. Right. So we only have one chance to make every shot, and therefore we kind of edit our movie before we start production by doing storyboards, and we make a version of the movie using the storyboards we call a story reel. And Walt Disney pioneered this years ago, but in our case, we use it as an iterative process where we will look at the movie, the whole movie, every 12 weeks internally, and we screen it. And then we will tear it all down, rework the story, and we keep doing that through the entire production. So it's almost like we get to have 9 or 10 cuts, you might say, of our film. even before we start production. So it's...
Sorry, the other thing I was going to say, the great thing that we've worked out at Pixar is that for the movie Jonas and I are working on, we show it in front of John, of course, and Andrew Stanton and Brad Bird and anybody else who's around. So we have this amazing expert advice by other filmmakers, which I guess doesn't happen a lot, which is really too bad. I think that sort of frank discussion that we all have and advice for each other really pluses every film that we make.
Question here, second row.
Hello, Kimberly Datnow. This is a question for Ms. Poehler and Ms. Kaling. I was just wondering, you're very well known for Mindy Project and Parks and Rec, and thank you so much for bringing those shows to us. They were absolutely fantastic. I'm just wondering what it's like when you're approaching your own scripts from an acting perspective and what it's like when you're actually looking at other people's writing and approaching those roles. Thank you.
Mindy?
You know, when I was asked to do this movie, I'm not asked to do that many things. I think I'm very specific in the way that I look and talk and what I'm interested in. So I've resigned myself / know that I'm going to be writing my own work, which is fine for me. But so when this came about, it doesn't happen that often. I'm not an actress that goes on auditions a lot. And so when I was asked to do this, I mean, the script was amazing. I went up to Pixar and I cried. I mean, this is it was the first time I was meeting you guys, and they showed me the story, and I started weeping. Mm-hmm. And so they weren't too scared off by that, and then let me continue to work with them. But this is amazing. This kind of opportunity does not happen because, you know, Amy's also a writer. I'm so critical of things, and to read something and just to have it be so fresh and to not feel feeling that I need to give it notes is wonderful.
Yeah, same. The theory that the most talented people can also be the most collaborative because they've kind of got nothing to hide. They're confident in their story and their scope and tone and vision and are like kind of welcome ideas is evident in the work with John and working with Pete and Jonas in the booth. It felt very collaborative. Sometimes when you do voiceover stuff, you're in a booth. We were all in the same room. And I remember a day where Pete's saying, I think you're just going to cry today, all day. And I was like, yes. It was it's like, and then I gave you guys $350 when we were done. Yeah. But so any good writer, I think, is a confident writer that is open to new ideas, but certainly the stuff that we said for the most part was in the script at the end, in the final cut of the film.
I just need to say that I believe in all of Pixar history, this is one of the most talented and amazing casts that we've ever had and what they've added to the movie. Just to be clear, we record the original voices before we do animation, and we'll go back and work with them sometimes for scenes many times to get it and craft it, but also they helped us create these characters. I mean, Amy, you did an unbelievable job in helping create this character and create this part and all and what you brought to it, and Phyllis was just like remarkable. I mean, when we got the first recordings of Phyllis and we played it against there, everyone just like screamed and how great it was, and Mindy just brought something special, and I think it's the most talented sort of cast we've ever had in any country. I think I was so excited when they were showing me who they wanted to get for the French cast, because I'm so excited. And we give license also because, yes, we make these films in America, but we want them to bring their own sensibility to it, and there's latitude for them to make the part their own, even though they're recording after the animation's finished.
I mean, you mentioned latitude, John, and earlier Charlotte said that obviously they got inspired by the American voices, but I would like to know from them, I mean, some of them had never done voices before, so how did they embrace the fact of creating an emotion, and also did they tap into their own emotions by doing some impro, whatever. Voilà, John parlait justement effectivement de l'influence des voix américaines, mais aussi.
We were talking about the influence of the American voices and also what you contributed to the film yourselves. Some of you have never done animated films before. Did you plunge into your own emotions? Did you improvise? How, in fact, did you experience this? This indeed was the first time that I had been a voice in this way. I was fortunate to begin with a Pixar film. I had dreamt of it ever since Toy Story was produced. It also involves quite a lot of responsibility. I like the idea of these primary colors, these archaic emotions. I was fear, which preserves us from danger. Yet it has a tremendous scope for comedy. I was very fortunate, therefore, to be able to be fear. And then, of course, we draw inspiration from our own experience of fear, what makes us laugh when we're afraid. And as Chorlotte said, we drew a lot on the characters and the screenplay. Chorlotte, did you improvise a lot as well? What did you look for? Did you look for the joy in you? I'm quite optimistic by nature, so it was reasonably easy, despite the fact the work was actually demanding. I know that there are scenes which are full of emotion, and I had to cry. Like what scene? I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but there are scenes where I really break down. And it's so beautifully written and animated that we automatically cried. It's what Amy was saying. She cried for a whole day. I'd already been the voice of a fly. It wasn't as glamorous. Marie-Lou, this was the first time for you, like Pierre. Yes. Did you plunge into yourself to find a sadness and all sorts of things? Of course. I was lucky because I recorded the last. So I had everyone's voices in French, contrary to Chorlotte and Gilles, who got things going. I found sadness quite difficult, because you have to keep control of things. If you're too sad, it's not really representative. You have to find a happy balance between being too sad and not sad enough. It was very, very interesting work. It's been a dream. And working with Pixar, we have Toy Story, I'm tremendously proud to be part of this film. Gilles, you're a real professional with voices, but anger? I'm angry 24 hours a day.
D'accord, we gave up. All right.
Okay.
Question ici.
It's a question from Liam Lacey from the Globe and Mail in Canada. I was curious whether the ideas of the psychologist Paul Ekman and his theories of universal micro-expressions had anything to do with the distillation of the emotions you chose to show.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to know Paul Ekman back on Toy Story when we were working on facial expressions, and he had done some great pioneering work. And micro-expressions, if you guys are familiar with that, are like the little telltale slips. Like as I'm looking and acting pleasant, I might just do like a little twitch somewhere that really tells you how I'm feeling.
That's not micro.
I was exaggerating for the crowd. But
Point is,
anyway,
you can't lie to Dr. Ekman.
That's right. So it's a little intimidating to talk to him. But yeah, he had a lot of great information for us about the emotions and which ones exist and what their jobs are and all that kind of thing. So it's fantastic to and really not only helpful as for design and for the concept of the story, but for writing. You know, because a lot of times, if you know this character is all about fairness, for example, which is anger, then you know what to write for and what are the triggers for him as a character, and so it was very, very helpful.
It was a protege of his, Dr. Keltner,
yeah,
who's Cal, who also helped us with that thing, which I thought was very interesting. Was just the simple idea that the emotions have a job. I mean, that even and I had never really thought of this, but that there's a reason why you have fear or anger, and joy, and even most mysteriously sadness and disgust, and that they all have a specific reason, and that really unleashed the writing, I think, because that was the way we gave them jobs and created this sort of professional shorthand between them and so forth, and that all came out of just the research and digging deep into that.
Question here, second row.
Question to John Lasseter. I enjoyed the movie very much. It's the best film I've seen here in Cannes. So my question is,
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Why
I know it's not up for what do you call it? Yeah, but it could still win, right?
Absolutely.
That's my question. Why?
It's up to you.
In the world of the mind, it wins.
It's just be independent and give that's all I'm saying.
So my question is, why is not in competition? It's your choice or festival choice? And second question, how animation has changed since you started, not from a technical point of view, but from storytelling point of view? Thank you.
As far as the festival, I think it was something we just want. Being here is really the prize, to be honest. To be invited, it's an official selection. That's really what is so special for us. It's interesting, when I started my career in animation, I went to Cal Arts from 1975 through 1979. At that time, animation was nearly dead, as an industry. There was TV, low quality TV animation being produced. Disney would produce a feature film maybe once every 4 or 5 years. But the prevailing attitude of the audience and even everybody working in it was animation was just for kids. And I knew it wasn't. And my friends that I was going to Cal Arts with knew it wasn't. Walt Disney never made his movies just for kids. The great Chuck Jones, who did the Warner Brothers cartoons, made their cartoons for adults to be released in theaters in front of Warner Brothers films. And so it was television in the 1960s when all the studios closed their cartoon studios that made the short cartoons. They sold their libraries to TV, and television put, before the zillions of channels we have today, there was only a handful of channels, and they would only put cartoons on in Saturday morning and after school. Therefore, the whole shift of who animation is for happened, and we felt, and adults felt like it was just for kids. It wasn't for them. When we were so inspired by the revolution that was happening in the late 70s in filmmaking with the work of, Francis Coppola and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Martin Scorsese, on and on. It's amazing work that was going on, and how these films were so deeply entertaining audiences. We felt like this. I would like to do this with animation. I know we can, and we just really got tremendous amount of resistance as we came into the workforce, and we started developing this. But we never stopped that belief that animation can be and should be for everyone, and truly deeply entertain audiences around the world, with great stories and keep people on the edge of their seat. It's what our kind of dream was, and we never kind of let go of that. So when I was able to do, we were able to do our very first film, which was Toy Story, which will have its 20th anniversary this November. I don't want to make people feel old, but yeah, it's 20 years since Toy Story. Wow. And it was the #1 movie, released that year in the box office. And I felt so great that, and not just about the technology, but it's about the storytelling, And it was very important for us also to be the first to do a computer animated feature film, because we knew our focus was in the right place, on the story and the characters. Other people were interested in it for just the technology. And it's fascinating when the first thing done with a new technology, if it's done right, will overnight change the world's perception of that technology. If it's done wrong, it changes. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and it's very hard to get people off of that first impression of it. And so, since Toy Story was the first one, was the #1 movie, everybody loved it, it just opened the doors for studios all over the world to make these. And we did a recent count. We had no idea how many computer animated films have been made in the last 20 years. It's over 250. Computer animated feature films have been made since Toy Story, and all around the world. And I feel very proud of that fact, you know.
Question over there, please.
Hi, thank you. Hannah Fennis from the Daily Telegraph in London. I just wanted to ask you about the use of cell phones in the film, which I imagine might give some parents pause for thought. In particular, the father, slightly distracted from his daughter on his phone constantly. I just wondered whether that was a deliberate choice of identifying an issue facing this generation of children, and whether you hope the film might convince parents to switch off a little bit.
All right, Pete and Jonas.
Interesting. It was basically based off of real observation. I mean, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and they are kind of part of our life. And so we tried to use them in ways that were truthful, but not too spotlit within the film. I think we were less interested in making a personal statement about it than just using it for plot reasons. But, you know, in our mind, we of course have all these incredibly complicated backstories for characters that don't show up on the screen. But like Dad, he's moved to San Francisco to start up a new company called Brang, which is an app that he's writing for iPhones. And is it
or sort of like
distributed to other formats as well?
Sort of like a Dropbox. We don't know. We're making
so
it up.
it's all about communication. Communication, which is kind of thematic to the film. So anyway, long story short, we're not really trying to make a statement on the overuse of it necessarily. It's just more of a observation of what's happening out there.
Question here, please.
Yes, hi, Travolta Cooper, Tempo Networks in the Caribbean and the USA. First of all, I love Pixar. You're my favorite of all. You're the best storytellers, period. This is another one of the best films of the year. I guess my friends and I always go back and forth as to what's our favorite Pixar film. They're all so great. Aside from this one, which you're obviously promoting, I'd like to throw that challenge to each of you. If you could point out which favorite film of Pixar is yours and why it means so much to you personally. Thank you.
But we can't answer this one? No? It can't be this one?
If it's this one, yeah. But that's on you.
I'm going to say this one.
Amy?
I'm going to say Up.
Oh, yeah.
Up? Fair.
No, I loved Up. In the very beginning of that film, you took me on the journey with when you see the empty chair and the man and the elderly man looking at I can't remember his name. Carl, yes. And I immediately, you grabbed my heart and took me on that journey, and I love Up. Besides this one.
I love so many Pixar movies, but I'm also going to say this one because I think that when I first went up to talk to these guys, what moved me about it was that it gave voice to a demographic that is not often given voice to. I remember being an 11-year-old girl, and I didn't have a vocabulary to express how I was feeling, and for two men and a fleet of men to think that that was important to give a voice to that, to have girls go and watch that, was very moving to me. And that said, you know, there are moments in Toy Story which are like epiphanies as of watching, you know. So that's my answer.
Cool.
Question here.
Yeah. Hi, Stephen de Voer, The Standard from Belgium. Actually, a question that's a bit elaborating on what my colleague here asked earlier. There is this strange divide at film festivals between what we call cinéma d'auteur, the really quality, high-minded films that aren't supposed to be commercial, and then on the other hand, the really big blockbusters, and often you can tell quality-wise. Now, you guys, you have been making for 20 years now films that are also excellent that among the quality lovers, you're always among their favorite films every year. So why not make a bridge over that gap by really competing and showing that animation film is not anything different from real life film, and that there's not such a thing as a difference between quality and cinema d'auteur, but only between good films and bad films. I mean, it would change a lot. Is that just your decision, or is it Thierry Frémaux's, or has it ever been considered?
Again, I want to remind that you can vote for whoever you want. It's your vote. So.
And remember, this is definitely an auteur film. This was Pete's original idea anyway. So this is an auteur film.
But I would love to, I mean, I'm amazed at so many things about John, but one of the things I feel, John just has a taste that is uniquely his, and it infiltrates all of Pixar, but also, thank you, but also reflects the audience, you know? And so there's kind of no difference in our mind between the two. The films that we make are the films that we feel strongly about, but our job, we know, is to speak to the audience. That's the reason you go to movies, to feel moved, to feel that your life is in some way represented on the screen in some otherworldly way that I've never seen before. So the distinction for us, I think, is not really a distinction that we draw. Is that fair to say?
And there'll be one last question over there.
Hi guys, it's Henry Barnes here from The Guardian. Thank you very much for this film, it's really great.
Thanks.
I just wondered if Pixar is ever planning to have a black or ethnic minority protagonist, and if it's significant to have one.
It's very important for us to have, you know, both Pixar and at Disney of having female, you know, ethnic characters, both protagonists as well as all through it. It's very, very important for us, and it's grown in importance over time, and you'll see in future films. We really are paying attention to that. It's really important. Animation, when we got started, was by and large, you know, mostly you know, guys in that, but we have been seeing more and more women and more you know, people from all over the world starting to work with it especially in story, and it's very exciting to see that come up, and I think it will get reflected in the characters. We do have a new movie coming from Disney called Moana, which is it's set of the legends and myths of Polynesia, of Oceania, and it's pretty spectacular, and so that's definitely taking the notion of these kinds of stories, just, you know, like, I guess most people think of fairy tale are by and large European fairy tales, and we're trying to reach out to the world to find, you know, the origins of legends from all over the world.
Well, thank you all for embracing Inside Out, and thank you all for bringing joy to Cannes. Pete, John, and the rest of the cast. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Such a great film. Such a great